Welcome, everybody, to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Welcome you here to a week after a heartbreaking and tragic start, as we all know. I think we're all feeling quite numbed about it. And sadly, this has not been the first week that we've woken up to something like this. However, on the bright side, yes, we mourn, we remember, and we do move on. And some people move on more than others, but that's part of our blessing and strength as a nation, is that Am Yisrael is strong, we're resilient, and I've no doubt we will do the same thing here. And we try to keep a smile on our face in order to inspire others and to keep ourselves moving and productive, which at the end of the day, Am Yisrael Chai, and we keep our nation moving. So today I have a guest who I've known for a good couple of years from my home city of Ma'ale Adumim, my old home city. I've had a couple of home cities, Ma'ale Adumim, Jerusalem, and now Netanya. So I'm going to spotlight her, my friend Leona Samson, who, as I say, I know from Ma'ale Adumim, and she's moved on now. She lived in Dimona. She's now in Beersheba. We just understood. Leona, good morning. Welcome, and we're delighted to have you on our show today on our Monday Motivation Spotlight. So who is Leona Samson? Firstly, Leona made the journey in aliyah in her 20s. I actually thought that she had moved here when she was younger, but in conversation now, I realized it was only in her 20s that she moved here from India to Israel. So Leona is going to share with us about her journey and her life in India and moving to Israel and making the transition, also learning the language, etc., and how she learned it. And in addition, Leona is an author, she's an illustrator, and she's a course creator. Leona has also had many moments of challenge in her life and has also learned to overcome these as best as possible with resilience, which also assisted her in developing a course. So Leona, welcome, good morning. Please share with us, inspire us. Am Yisrael Chai, as we said. And if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to make to Leona, please keep yourselves, for those that are joining live, not listening to the recording, please keep yourselves on mute and ask her questions via the chat. You can also write about your business in the chat, because although it's not a networking group, feel free to share what you do. Take it away, Leona. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lesley. First of all, I really want to express my appreciation to be hosted here. And it's a big privilege for me. And as you said, yes, we went through a very challenging period in general. And yesterday was particularly difficult. But as you mentioned, we as a people, we know how to go on and carry on and somehow build from the destruction. So let's let me share a little bit about my journey. It's but because it's going to be some personal topics, I want to set an intention in the beginning that I'm telling my stories from my perspective. I do not want, some of these things are very difficult and involve other people, and I want to make it clear that I'm not. My intention is to speak my story without any kind of suggestion that anyone else was not okay in this part, because one of the things I've learned is not to judge anyone and to give them usually there's always more than one side to every story, so I'm telling my story. And hopefully you will not also judge anyone else in this story. So I was born in India in 1956, a long time ago. And I was born in Madras, which is on the eastern coast of India. And as an infant, actually, we moved to the western coast. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about my family and my community. So I'm a Bnei Israel. Okay, and my father, my mother and father, like, I don't know how many of who are listening know about the Bnei Israel. There are many types of Indian Jews. Like, we're not all one Indian Jewish community. So my community, which is Bnei Israel, is a very ancient community. It's believed to have, gone towards India after the destruction of the first temple. And it's my father's, like my mother's side, I believe my mother was actually born in what was later was Pakistan. It was all, when they were born, it was all the British rule, so to speak. And she and every Bnei Israel family has a curve. That means I'm calling Samson because we took these biblical names during the time of the British, when the British were in India. But before that, and even during, we kept our curve. Our curve tells us from where we come. So my mother's side is called Naugaonkar because Naugaonkar means a new town, a new village, basically. And they came from, I believe, I'm less certain about this side than I am about my father's side. They came from what is now Pakistan, or even maybe further than that, and they came to India once it became clear that there was going to be partition, etc., etc. And my father's side is called from Kilekar. Now, Kilekar means it's you come from a fort, and they were always, like, for a long time centered around the city of Pune, which was first a village, whatever, and it became the city of Pune. And that city, Kilekar, means they come from a fort. And the history, the story is that the Bnei Israel got that name because they fought in the battles of Shivaji, who was one of the historical figures at that time, a few centuries before there. So you can imagine, like, coming, like, at the after the destruction of the first temple, that was like so there's a lot of speculation about the community. And there's like a theory that we come from the tribe of Zvulun, because a really high proportion of our community is, at least used to go to the sea. Like in my own family, my maternal grandfather was a seaman, and out of 5 brothers on my father's side, 2 were seamen. So listen, it's a myth. It might be a story, but I'm inclined to believe it. Anyway, so I grew up in India, in mostly in Mumbai. And actually, throughout my life in India, of course, I had my family, and I come from a secular family. So I knew, of course, my entire family was Jewish. But as far as friends are concerned, I had only one other Jewish friend my entire life. I consider a friend to this day, even though we haven't really seen each other in decades. But like, I knew her from the time of childhood. And most of my other very dear friends are Christian and Hindu and Parsi. There's the Indian Parsis, like, so I have those friends. And they're very dear to me to this very day. I actually always went to a Christian school. In the lower grades, I went to a Catholic school. I grew up my entire, like, until I came to Israel, I grew up opposite, like, this wonderful Catholic family with 7 girls. I mean, come on, I didn't need any friends. They were when they were there. And in my school, after the 5th standard, I don't know how, I don't know if it's the same equivalent in Israel, but I went to a boarding school, which is acceptable in India and actually considered like the thing to do, at least in that generation. And I went to a, a Protestant school where I again met some of my dearest friends who I consider friends to this day. And if I go back to, like, my, I write, I this thing. So where's my English from? My English is from the Protestant nuns first. But like before that, when I was a very young child, my parents put me in a Marathi speaking school, like, for kindergarten, first, like, I think almost up to 2nd grade. And I had no idea what was going on because we spoke English at home, except my grandmother sometimes would speak in Marathi. But like, so I was like lost this entire time, like all the kindergarten and this thing, I was like completely lost. I did not know what was going on. And then when I moved to this Catholic school, then I got this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful teacher who, like, literally inspired. I owe her so much. I don't even remember her name, but she made me read 1 book a week. And it's like, if I have my love of reading, it's thanks to this teacher. So never underestimate the kind of influence you can have on someone's life. All right. So how did I decide it? I decided after I got a master's degree in French literature and language. Now, don't ask me why, because I thought maybe, I love literature, I love language, and I thought English literature and language, I can always, master on my own, but French literature and language, which of course, it hasn't proved very helpful in Israel at all. But it was what I chose, and I got a master's degree in it. And after I finished that master's degree, I decided to come to Israel, like after a year or so after that. And I have, it was more, if you understand story, it was like this call to action, but it was not an external call to action. It was something deep within that was like just pushing me, go and do something different. And so I actually found out how I can, and I went, our family had a friend who had connections with the Jewish agency, etc. And I came to Israel in 1980. I came on the Vujis program. And I have to say that I love India. I consider myself an Indian, and I always will. But when I came to Israel, I just felt at home. I just felt this was home. And that's always like, even if I travel and go to the States or go here, go to the States and I come back, I just feel I've come back home. So so there's something like deeper than what I can rationally explain about my, being in Israel. And okay, the first year that I was here, I met my ex-husband, Alav Shalom, and we got married. And it was like I'm a very at least I was a very traditional, conventional Indian woman who, when I got married, it was like, I'll stay married for my entire life. This is it. This is this is what I was brought up to believe, to think, and to want, and to believe. And so in the beginning it was okay, and but it after about 5 years it became clear that there was something that was not okay. And so I decided, slowly, by the time it was about 8 or 9 years, I had made the very, very difficult decision for me that I would need to separate and eventually get divorced. Right. And so I started, actually, things were like so kind of crazy that, in fact, I got advice from people that I should escape with my kids to India. I mean, so it was like, but I didn't, I've always been a law-abiding person. I couldn't consider that. But I didn't have much support, but I did have a few good friends who supported me and who I consider my friends to this day again, even though we don't see each other very often. And so I did get advice to start everything in the court system. And, you won't believe the court files and everything. And then eventually I asked for a divorce. So I came to the conclusion, yes, I cannot avoid getting a divorce any more. So I started the divorce proceedings, and it became like clear that I would not be getting a divorce very easily. Again, I do not want to speak. My father of my children is a wonderful man, but I can't even discuss why, but it was like I would not be able to get a divorce, and I ended up being a misurevet get, okay? And at that time, and I want to tell you about one very defining moment, because up to this life, my entire life, and not my entire, but very much a large portion of my life in Israel was like a victim. I was just like going from crisis to crisis. And then I was in a hearing at the Rabbanut, all right? And I'm Bnei Israel. I don't know how many people know that the Rabbanut has, like, there was a period of time that they had like doubts about the Jewishness of Bnei Israel. So at that hearing was like, there was 3 judges, and they were looking at their papers, and of course it was written that I was a Bnei Israel, and 2 of the judges were discussing this, say, in order to solve the problem, let's negate her Jewishness. All right. And I can't even begin to explain what I experienced at that moment. Because even before, I forgot to mention, I became very religious. My ex-husband was like from a Dati Leoma family, and I explored Judaism on my own. I got myself some Haredi friends, and I actually went far beyond Dati Leoma. I became Haredi. And I just fell in love with Judaism. It was like, even before I came to Israel, I was always Jewish. There was no doubt in my mind about this. And they're talking about this, and I'm just like, I'm just like horrified. I'm frozen. And the 3rd judge looked up at me rather than at the notes, and he said, "Absolutely not, absolutely not." All right. So, and that's how her discussion ended. And I remember I don't know how I went home. I went home, and I was like in such a state. I was in such a state. When I went home, like, it was as though all the energy had drained out of me. I was not there. I was shaking. I was shaking literally for hours uncontrollably. And then even when I stopped shaking, the shaking continued for like on and off for a few days. I just couldn't believe it. And as hard as that was a defining moment, because I made a subconscious or conscious, I don't know, decision. This is where I stopped being a victim. All right. And this is where I stopped being a victim. And what's really, I want to make 2 points here. That victim, I'm not talking here about that there is no victimhood. There is definitely, I mean, we don't need to be told that, right? We don't need to be told that in Israel. But I did make the decision, because like there are real victims, but what I consider victim is where you have the option not to be a victim. Okay, that's victimhood that we have to work on. So I decided that's it. It's going to end here. All right. And that's what, at the back of all my journey to finding that sense of strength inside of me, it started at that moment. And what was really ironic is that in the beginning, like, like when I got married in the first year or 2, I actually went through Giur L'Chumra, which I never mentioned to them. And this is the first time I'm publicly saying it, because I'm not sure I would make the same choice today, but I don't regret making that choice. But it was like, in any way, it was like irrelevant. But that's like, eventually I did get my divorce. And, but that was the moment where I decided, enough. This is just not, there is no person coming on a horse to save you. There's nothing. You got to be your own, you got to save yourself from this. You have to learn how to become strong. You have to this thing. That was the turning point in my journey. So, that's what I wanted to say.
I'm sure that wasn't easy for you, but that's what enabled you to move forward and create a life for yourself that you wanted.
Exactly. I mean, as I want to say, it was not like that suddenly after I made this decision that life became easy or something. It certainly did not.
Right. It takes time. It's a process.
Yes. And in fact, but what I wanted, in fact, that was not the most difficult. Obviously, is people who know that I lost my son to suicide know that was obviously, that was the most traumatic moment in my life. But because I'll say it here, it was like, because I had worked for that whole period of time on myself and keeping the sense of myself within it, that I was on the floor. I was finished. But I was there. I was there. That means I was crying. I was broken. I was sure that I would never, 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 never be the same again. But I was there, which is different from before. When lose yourself, you've lost yourself. So that was the difference, and that's that sense of like holding your center through the storm and through the terrible moment is like something that you do with practice, and you learn how to keep that sense of self within, basically. So yeah, so that was it, and that was my personal journey, and my personal journey. You're always on a personal journey, so I'm still on this. It's like for me, every day is to learn how to find yourself and to find the calm and to find the strength and to find the way to take the next step, basically, because it's always actually simple, because like we're looking far ahead, but the challenge is in the moment and taking that next step. That's all you need to do. It's like Yamima Avital, the Yamima method. She always says it's like the choice in the moment is duke. That means if you just take that pause, that moment, the choice in this moment is like what you choose. It's the duke of the moment, basically. So, and then of course you move forward towards your goals, towards your whatever you want to accomplish, whatever you need to fix, whatever you need to do. But like, if you look at this, it's like it's all out there, but the moment to moment is just that one moment of choice, basically. So yeah.
Absolutely. And we all know, Leona, that life is a choice. We don't get dealt the cards. We don't choose the cards that we get dealt with. I know my husband likes to use that saying as well, but we do choose how we're going to play them. And you made the choice not to be a victim. And many of us here that have gone through challenges have made that same choice with other things. And that's so admirable. And that's, as I said, what's enabled you to move forward, even though you had other challenges along the way. And no one said, Hashem didn't say when he created us that he was going to create us with a challengeless life. No, but I think we can all see how to make that difference. Share with us what you do now in Israel, your profession. Tell us a little bit about the course that you created.
Sure. So, so because I came to Israel with almost no Hebrew. So the first few years I just did whatever. I cleaned people's houses. I've been the helper to a ganenet, everything, whatever you can think of, I've done. Then I moved up the scale, so to speak, until I learned like enough Hebrew. And I became a translator. I was lucky enough to have a professional Misrada Avoda translation course. Since then, I started translating Hebrew into English, mainly medical translations. And I did that to about 2 years ago. And then as it started moving more and more to AI, I decided, no, that's it. I can't be happy. I can't be happy. I don't have any, I don't have young children to take care of, in which case I would have probably done the AI till I found another alternative. So I just decided, whatever it is, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to concentrate on what I did before I would translate and take care of, like I was my own Renaissance person, so to speak, because I did the translation and all, which I liked, but it wasn't like a passion or anything. It wasn't really something that, oh my gosh, if I had all the money in the world, I would keep doing it. No. So, but I did that. And then I allowed myself to write and to, do all my creative things because I could do it. Now, but when I stopped the translation, now I'm like, okay, now I got to make this, things work. So yes, I have books. I have written a book. This is the book that I wrote after I lost my son, which is like,
just read the title because I can't see the
title.
title
It's
so
called
clearly.
Community of Ones, The Search for Self After Devastating Loss. And this is
okay, show us the cover again.
I refuse to change this book. Many people have said you should edit it, you should make it more like this. I refuse it because I wrote it in a state that I don't think I can't possibly, change anything about it. So
is the book on Amazon? We had a question.
Yes, it is on Amazon. It is actually on Amazon for only in the ebook format. I have copies at home. I sell the hard copies, but they're not advertised. They're not advertised. You need to get in touch with me personally to buy a hard copy. And then
okay, so you'll probably announce it afterwards, but to get in touch with you, if anyone wants privately Leona's email and phone number, but your
yes,
website.
It's on my website. It's on my website, my email.
Which is leonasamson.com, correct?
The website is leonasamson.com. That's right. That's right. And you'll find,
You're welcome to look at
my
that.
email there is the community of one's email. You'll find it there. And then actually this book I had written when it's called Tuli and the Pell-Mells. And it was a book that I'd written, like a little story I'd written when my kids were little, and I forgot all about it. And I found it later, and I thought it was really funny. So I said, I have to do something about this. So I produced it. I wrote it, and it's I think it's really fun. And people who, I don't understand much about, but people actually in one of your groups, Lesley, someone suggested it should be to teach people, children as a second language. It would be a good alternative. And
okay, amazing.
Yeah, that was in one of your meetups in Jerusalem. And then recently, last year, my son wrote this book about a Jewish history called The Historical Adventures of Yehuda and Tuti, Maccabean to Herodian Period. Now, when I did my book, Tuli and the Pell-Mells, I knew I had a wonderful illustrator, but I knew it was really hard to get the illustrations right. So I said to him, let me do the illustrations in rough, and then you can give it to the illustrator. And he liked the illustrations, so he put them in. So I ended up, that started my journey as an illustrator. And I have my course Undauntable, which is also, you can access through my website, leonasamson.com. And it is a course that that tells you that gives you a roadmap from out of victimhood to be, essentially, that is it, to taking the right journey towards what you would like, basically.
Wow, Leona, we could carry on talking about this for ages, and you've been so inspiring. And it's not by chance that I chose you to be our spotlight this week, in a week where we didn't yet know we were going to have so many challenges and tragedy and need to pull ourselves together and have inspiration. So thank you much for being our guest on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I encourage you all to follow Leona on social media and to take a look at her website, leonasamson.com. Buy her books, join her course, download whatever you want to call it. And, just some of the things you said are just so important. Everything you said, but a couple of takebacks that I will take to heart, and which I know is number one, that we can choose, even though it's not always easy, whether to be in victim mode or not. And that's really our choice. Yet it's not always easy at the time. It is a process. And also the whole thing of living in Israel, that we feel home and we feel at home. And I know I can't generalize that, but many of us feel that. We feel at home when we come in contact with either Israelis abroad or here. And also often the feeling of, why we love Israel so much, even with everything going on, is often not a rational one. And you use those words, but it's very, very true. And surveys have showed that Israelis have the highest quality of life. And people can say, how can that be with everything we have? But that's what we have, an Am Yisrael Chai. So thank you again to all of you for joining, whether it was via live or whether the recording. Thank you again, Leona. Thank you to our co-host, ACI. I'm Lesley Kaplan. You've been listening to the Monday Motivation Spotlight, and we look forward to seeing you same time, same place. Next week, we have a double event, so please allocate the time. We have our Monday Motivation with our special guest. I'll give a little bit. I don't always announce who our special guest is, but many of you know her, our friend Yael Kanner, also from Ma'ale Adumim. So Yael is going to be our guest next week. And then we lead on to the double event with the professional women's with Hadass Levy with the topic of Google. So save the time. Thank you again for joining. Am Yisrael Chai. B'sorot tovot. Bye-bye.